Let's podcast. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and, of course, thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management, get everything to the cloud and save money in 2025. Speaking of 2025, can North Carolina save themselves in hoops? The Tar Heels follow a very, very specific pattern in these big non-conference games, Joe. They fall down. They don't look like they have energy. Something happens at halftime. They come out. They look hot fire. RJ Davis doing the thing. Sometimes they'll even take a lead, but then all that time spent getting back into the game, it just takes a matter of time for the other team, which is good, to settle down and then start rebounding, taking opportunities away from the Tar Heels. And, of course, the Tar Heels come up short. This is essentially North Carolina's season so far in a nutshell. And I'm looking how they're constructed, and I'm thinking of our conversations with Brendan Marks of The Athletic, and I'm looking at their size. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure there is a way to clean these things up. This is kind of who they are. And I guess you got to be winning some games in the 90s. Otherwise, it's going to be a really weird season for the Tar Heels.
Well, they scored enough points. They just couldn't rebound, particularly at the end of the game when they needed to get the rebounds.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be big to rebound now.
This is true.
I mean, it helps. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, and I'm not trying to single out Van Allen Lubin, but sometimes you go in the portal and you get Brady Manick. Sometimes you go in the portal, you get Harrison Ingram. Sometimes you go in the portal and you get Van Allen Lubin and the Nance brother, who was the only Nance in the whole family that couldn't play.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming them.
Yeah.
But I'm watching the game and I'm going, all right, Tremple's doing his job. RJ's doing his job. Ian Jackson, I thought, was coming alive in that game for them.
Had some flashes, yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, you got to get stops and you got to get a few rebounds. Part of getting stops are getting rebounds when the other team misses. I look at it and they have a win over Dayton, which is good. They have a chance to beat UCLA. UCLA is a good team.
Yeah.
But man, their resume is leaving them in a position, and we already know how the NCAA selection committee works, even when your AD is the chair of that selection committee. They do not care about your losses. There are no rewards for losses. And this Florida loss is going to hurt them because this was in Charlotte. This is a classic Carolina game where they're down big at the half. They come back. They roar back. That building is
crowd's
alive.
into it. Yeah, crowd's super into it.
Alive.
Yeah.
And RJ Davis, even with all that being said, has a chance to win the game. Bricks the three. And
that's what I'm saying. Look, I'm not trying to be
it's very uncharacteristic for them to have that type of game in that location and to lose it. Florida's a really good team. Please don't get me wrong, but that's a game that Carolina we've historically seen win 99 out of 100 times.
And I'm not trying to be cavalier about scoring in the 90s, but yeah, they didn't shoot well early either. They're very thin margin for error, and the only way they're going to get through it is to shoot through it, and that just wasn't there until late.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
All right, this is from a 919 number.
Joe and Joe, first time, long time. Driving back from Charlotte, morning after Carolina, blows yet another big time game to a quad one, SEC, Big 12, you name it, right? We continue to shit our pants, man. And I was listening to you guys' show. As you see, I've lost my voice, as you hear, rather. I've lost my voice screaming so much at the game last night. And I listened to the Inside Carolina podcast driving back. And you guys have been touching on this point, and I forget which Joe mentioned this, but, that Hubert was on the hot seat. And I couldn't agree more, man. It's that standard that we Carolina fans recognize as Carolina basketball. It's gone. With the exception of last season, when Carolina looked like a traditional Carolina team for the most part, past 5 or 6 years, Carolina basketball has been a shit show. It just hurts my stomach, man. It's not a good product. It's not fun to watch. And being able to be in the Spectrum Center last night, I just knew, what the outcome was going to be. It just drives me crazy, man. But I love what you guys do. I support a lot of your partners and things of that nature. And you guys put out a very good product, and I appreciate listening. But thank you for letting this Carolina fan vent on this fine morning.
And that is what the sports phone is for. You can curse or don't.
Or don't. Last 5 years, I mean, I guess I get what he's saying. 20, they don't make the tournament.
Yep.
21 is Roy's last year that lose to Wisconsin. The only time he's ever lost in the first round. 22 though, right? You have to talk me back into this. We're using the wrong lens, right? You're not using the Carolina.
You're
lens.
not using the Carolina lens. You sound like a state guy.
22, you get to the final, you beat Duke.
When you talk like that, it sounds very well. They just won an ACC championship.
Right.
Let it cook.
Yeah.
Nah, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way.
Last year, the number 1 seed. No, I mean, 23, they don't make it. 20, there's no excuse for 23.
No, there's no excuse.
Not a single excuse for 23. I get you on that. 24, they're a number 1 seed, regular season ACC. I get it. The regular season only matters when we start arguing about conferences.
Here's where I'll tell you there's similarities between NC State football and Carolina basketball. I think there's going to be a conversation at the end of this year, regardless of how the year plays out, short of winning a national championship. But there's probably be a conversation between Bubba Cunningham, if he's still the AD when it's all said and done at North Carolina, and Hubert Davis about staff changes. Much like Boo Corrigan, and like you like to tell that story between Boo Corrigan and Dave Dorn saying, hey, man, you're not going anywhere. Let's equip you with what you need going
how do we
forward.
help you?
How do we help you? And I'll be curious to see how that conversation plays out.
Hey, guys, it's Paul. All right. Since Carolina basketball is off to its worst start since they ended the year 8-20, I guess as a Carolina fan, it is now my duty to fire Hubert Davis and replace him. And I have an idea. So Carolina football has been so mid for so long that we decided that we were going to build the Death Star. We were going to hire Emperor Palpatine to build the Death Star. And you know what? If we're going to lean all the way into being a villain, I mean, NC State and a bunch of other fan bases have always hated us because we've carried ourselves as hoity-toity, the Carolina way, Dean Smith, Roy Williams. We're the good guys, and they've always hated us. So you know what? Heel turn, baby. And I'm telling you, who better than to fix the Carolina family than the Don himself? Welcome to Chapel Hill, Rick Pitino.
Now, if you want the Don, you go out and you get Pat Riley. Tell him to put the heat on the back burner. Let Mickey and the family handle that business. I'm going to come to Chapel Hill. I will be the true Don who brings everything together. Although, can you imagine Rick Pitino in the white suit with an Argyle tie?
It would actually look pretty good.
That would look fire. That would straight look fire.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
From a 919 number from Steven. I'm a State fan, so I hate Carolina and Clemson. But can the ACC please win a game against the SEC? At some point, you got to make shots, and the ACC can't get it out of its own way. If the league can't get more than 4 teams in the tournament, they will have no one to blame but themselves. This is a perfect opportunity to welcome on the Heister Automotive Group hotline our friend from CBS Sports, Eye on College Basketball. He is Matt Norlander. Matt, we're sweating here on Tobacco Road, man. Sweating.
Yeah, it's, man, I remember last season when I was trying to still defend the ACC. My podcast partner was not nearly as kind. And now, oh boy, I got the record for you real quick here because I every Wednesday at cbssports.com, I do a huge, arguably way too long notebook type thing where I touch on a few different things. Actually, I lead on Belichick and how that might affect Carolina hoops. But I got a reader question, and they asked, the exact question was, how much worse can this get for the ACC this season and all that? And I listen, 2 years ago was bad, but the record as of this morning is 126-72. That's a 636 winning percentage. It's the 7th best winning percentage of any league in the country, and it's obviously the worst among the Power 5. You may or may not be aware, although we are still kind of early. I don't like to get into quad 1 wins prior to like mid-January. However, guys, The ACC only has 2 more quad 1 wins than it has quad 3 losses. It has 10 quad 1 wins as of Wednesday morning, and it has 8 quad 3 losses. It's looking like it's a 4-bid league if all breaks right. Not good times for the ACC, and this is particularly juxtaposed against the SEC, which is en route to what statistically really could be the most dominant non-conference showing by a conference in the history of Division I men's college basketball.
All right. How did we get here? How did we get to the state of the ACC and us asking the question, is the ACC cooked? And I'm not just talking about this year. I just don't necessarily see a path, given how things are going, where the ACC is, to think nothing but, man, the ACC looks cooked.
Yeah. How did we get here? Variety of factors. You can't just say it's size of league, because now at this point, 4 of the 5 high major leagues are 16 to 18 teams. So you can't fall back on that. Whereas actually this was a reason why the ACC was getting dragged down a bit in years past, because the bottom 3 or 4 teams were really, a bit of an anchor on the overall collective team resumes across the conference. But that's not the reason anymore. I don't think it helps the fact that they've got, this is a bigger issue, but it doesn't help that you've got SMU and Stanford and Cal, and you've got this disparate geographic landscape that's different from any other high major conference that's out there, even though everything's spread out. Nothing is as weird as the ACC. That doesn't help. And NIL across the board, I would say SEC definitely has more in NIL, Big 10 likely more, Big 12 definitely more. Big East is debatable, but Big East actually has a few schools that are not exactly hurting, and the Big East will only have some of those schools have their situation improve because they don't have to worry about football for revenue sharing. So you can actually argue that the Big East is set up to be at least on the same footing, if not better, moving forward there. So you've got that. You've lost, obviously. Brain drain is probably putting it on too heavy, but if you look
I don't think that's too heavy.
No.
That's not heavy.
You don't think it's too heavy? I mean, if you look at the collective, that isn't to say that guys coaching in this league right now can't eventually be really good and there aren't really good coaches. But if you look at the ACC 7 years ago and who was coaching in the league, and even then Syracuse was disappointing. So don't get me wrong, Boeheim's a Hall of Famer, but it's not like they were killing it every year. But if you look at it then versus when you look at it now, it's not nearly the same. So these are kind of big, broad things, and it's all dovetailing to a not great situation right now, which doesn't mean that Duke can't win a national championship. It doesn't mean Duke can't make the Final Four. It doesn't mean that Carolina can't get its act together. I was big on Wake Forest heading into the season, but collectively you look up and down this conference and it's like, damn, this really is now threatening to be another down season yet again, and it could be on the level of 2 years ago when the ACC had its worst finish ever in Ken Palm.
I think you're on the right track. It's the willingness, in addition to the coaches, right? Like I just saw an item on my Twitter timeline about Syracuse attendance, which I was always blown away. Matt, when you cover NC State, you get a true picture of what an opposing arena looks like. When I covered Carolina for a year, every arena is sold out, every one. But when you cover NC State, you get a true picture. And I remember being up there. Now I think Syracuse may have been number 1 in the country, but I'm up there and I'm like, this place is jammed.
Yeah.
For NC State on a Thursday night. Like, what in the world? Right. But part of that's, you have a Hall of Fame coach, you have a history, you have a connection to these players. I think that's hurting the ACC a lot. To your point about the expansion of the ACC, I used to be able to tell you every player on Virginia, Clemson, Georgia Tech's roster, even Boston College's. Like I couldn't tell you the first player on, I think Cal's got Stojakovic's kid.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah. I'm being serious.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I hear you.
Clemson tonight, I'm like, I recognize Shefflin. They still have a Hunter because they always have a Hunter. It's like a Brownell axiom. You have to have a Hunter or somebody with a first or last name Hunter. So I'm just kind of looking at it and I'm like, you've lost who you play, the connection to understanding who you're playing on a regular basis. You've lost the coaches, the Hall of Fame coaches. And I just think there's a lack of willingness to play the NIL game. I don't know if it's money or willingness. Like,
I think it's a willingness,
right?
Well, yes. So I think yes and no. Let's quickly roll down the roster here. Duke, not a lack of willingness. Pitt, I actually, in all transparency, I can't tell you how good or not Pitt's NIL situation is. I don't know. UNC, decent, good, but that actually gets really tricky moving forward with Belichick and how much football money is going to drain on that. That is a super interesting situation at UNC moving forward there. I have more on that at CBSSports.com. I won't go through every school, but like Louisville has a top 5 NIL in the country for its men's basketball program, which is ironic because the athletic department isn't flush with cash. But Louisville willing to play ball, and I'm looking down the rest of this roster.
Miami, obviously.
We'll say it again.
Miami, SMU are obviously
Miami. But not like Miami. I wouldn't put like top 15 in the country or anything like that. And then SMU on the hoop side, it's not reflected in their roster right now. So a lack of willingness and all these things kind of contribute. And then when you get into a situation where I think there's not to get too big picture on this because I take no joy in expressing this observation or opinion. I think for as much as people in the ACC and more maybe traditional ACC neighborhoods and geographies still love their basketball and are dedicated and devoted to their basketball, and there are still we see it. You guys obviously see it in your numbers and people that consume the content.
Mm-hmm.
However, when the population at large is repeatedly either told or signaled in a variety of ways about how much college football matters, and this has been something that has been pushed upon over the past 8 to 10 years in ways that it simply wasn't before that, I think that has downstream effects on interest across the sport in general, but maybe you're seeing it, in some very acute ways inside the ACC. And now that the football creep is really, we've seen what it's done to the ACC and what it looks like right now. I think that also has effects on where the state of the league is in basketball right now.
Well, even the commissioner of the ACC, when he took over, put an emphasis on football. Their ACC network has a new emphasis on football. So it's not just signaling from media or consumption habits. Even the commissioners are saying this. All right, let's go back to the micro. My curiosity, Patrick Stevens, who helps us out on a lot of bubble stuff. He contributes to the Washington Post. He was in town to watch George Mason versus Duke. And we were chatting here before we got recording. And he made a really, really good observation when we were talking about Duke, the ACC, and whether or not they're going to get challenged this year. We might recognize Duke as a good basketball team. We recognize that Cooper Flagg is the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. I get all that stuff. But I'm wondering now, given what we've seen out of the ACC so far, at any point, are they going to get challenged? Are they going to be hardened by the time they get to the NCAA and then see something they're not familiar with, or they have to go back into their bag from November and December? Patrick basically called them Gonzaga. And I was like, ooh, that's a really good observation from Patrick. What do you think about Duke and the ACC and getting challenged?
That's a bit too aggressive for my taste. Patrick Stevens does a wonderful job, by the way. Real ones know how long he's done really good work there. I wouldn't call him Gonzaga. That is downgrading the ACC too much. Duke will lose games in league play. That is going to happen. I don't
know, man.
Yeah, they're going to lose.
All right.
Duke will not go undefeated in the ACC. That's not
all right.
They'll get picked off for sure.
Okay.
Also remember that Duke will play Illinois in the Garden in February, so it will step out of rhythm and get a non-conference opponent, which hasn't happened for Duke in a long time. And damn if that's not well-timed this year, because Illinois could wind up being a 4 or 5 seed this season. So to get a team of that level in a quasi-neutral court environment, obviously Duke fans will fill that building plenty. Although don't underestimate Illinois; they travel well. They'll get that, but there is something to this. Duke wound up winning easily last night, but I had that game on the old quad box, so I wasn't listening. But but at one point I was like, the score was whatever it was, and there was however much time left, and I was like, is Duke going to crack 65 against George Mason or not? And they wound up doing it at the point. And Mason's like a decent defensive team, and they're super experienced. But I was like, is he not having a good night here? And Duke's going to win, but am I going to look up and see Duke only beat Mason by 9 points? Now that didn't happen. But to that extent, I don't have their schedule up in front of me, but pick Clemson, UNC, they're going to get picked off on the road at least once or twice. That said, they are pacing toward, if they are what we think they can be, and they don't get tripped up by a single bad team in the ACC, and obviously landmines are going to be out there plenty, Duke will actually have a chance to be a 1 seed as long as it gets the job done and loses, say, 2 or fewer games in ACC play. It will be a 1 seed in that scenario, which would be really good for the ACC.
Yeah.
But then you juxtapose that against everything else that the league will have, and it's not going to be a pretty picture whatsoever. I don't know if the league collectively can provide enough resistance to really coarsen Duke's skin as it gets ready for March here. Certainly something to watch. But I do think because of the roster construction here, I expect Duke to lose at least 1 or 2 games where it's, if not a comfortable favorite, like we think they're going to win it, and then they just don't. And won't mean the sky is falling or anything like that. But I would be stunned if Duke can get out of ACC play with, I'd say, 2 or fewer losses. Mark me down for 3 L's for Duke.
All right.
I mean, they have one of those games on Saturday where they go to Georgia Tech. I mean, that would be one that
Those
I
are
would,
one of the weird ones.
I know Carolina's the one who's vexed by Georgia Tech and Atlanta, but I could see them struggling down there.
It certainly could happen. Did they? Not to get too far off the track here. Was it them or UNC? I feel like Georgia Tech pulled off a home win
last year. It was
last
Carolina.
year. Yeah.
Which is always happens with Carolina. I know how and we'll close on this. I know how the Carolina Duke game is going to go. Carolina will come out with no energy for some weird reason. And then RJ Davis will start hitting a bunch of shots. And I don't know, one of the freshmen will do something that'll get everybody on, all the UNC fans all hyped up. Maybe they'll take a 3-point lead, a 4-point lead. And then they'll forget, rebounding is kind of key. Their size becomes a bit of an issue. And then they end up losing the game. I mean, I know exactly how Carolina's season is going to go because we've seen it play out already.
I haven't had the time to look this up. And frankly, if they'd won last night, I might have stayed up another 30 minutes and looked it up, but they lost. So it's not as urgent. I want to know the splits for UNC before and after halftime. The field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and points. It is bizarre how it seemingly, I was out in Maui. I saw them up close and personal.
Yeah.
Their one good resume win right now is Dayton.
Yeah.
And they easily could have lost that game. It was a thriller, but they can't get off to good starts. The rebounding is an issue that is not going to be overcome. And they might be playing in a different gear and a different speed than most teams. So from a scouting perspective, like they might have a shot here once they get into league play. But like, how many good wins are you going to get? The resume is troublesome. And now for the second time in 4 years, we could have a situation with UNC where lofty preseason expectations lead to just constant turbulence. That's not good for anyone. And it's particularly irksome for UNC fans with the backdrop of you just happened to bring in the greatest coach in the history of football to coach your football.
Which you can read on CBS Sports.
Fascinating dynamic.
I think it was Andrew Jones, a little food for thought. You were on the right track. I think it was Andrew Jones over at Tar Heel Illustrated that pointed out that in non-conference play, Carolina has trailed at some point in the first half of every non-conference game. It doesn't matter the opponent. So, that includes Elon, for heaven's sake. I think LaSalle had him for a little bit too. So that's where Carolina is. It's going to be interesting to see how that season plays out. Unless they score 95 a night. If you score 95 a night,
yeah.
I don't like the chances, but
scored enough last night.
Not good enough from 3, man. They're I brought up their KenPom page right now. They're 249th in the country in 3-point accuracy. Not going to happen.
Not happening. Matt Norlander, CBS, Eye on College Basketball. I am a listener. Shout out to Gary Parrish. Shout out to Nada. I will talk to you later, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Happy holidays.
Housekeeping.
Always enjoy our chats with Matt Norlander, and I enjoy our chats with Bomani Jones. Bomani will be here January 31st. Speaking of all his hoops, it is going to be the Basketball Jones at the Rialto, January 31st. Get your tickets at therialto.com. You can give that gift to the basketball lover in your life. You can also give the gift of the OG. Go to breakingtea.com/OG. Buy one of our shirts at checkout. Use the promo code OG. You'll get 10% off that shirt plus a mystery shirt for free from our friends at Breaking Tea. And of course, you have OGTriangleMedia.com.
Who doesn't love a mystery?
Love it. Well, you mentioned mysteries. There's the Secret Pint of the Month Club at Two Roosters, is there not? It's broken containment. People know about this now. Joe does not get his way. It's not a secret. The first rule about the Secret Pint Club is you can't talk about the Secret Pint Club unless it's this podcast. Go to tworoosters.com to find out more. Better yet, go and get your holiday supplies right now. Maybe you're going to go visit some family this weekend. Maybe you're hosting something. What better way to bring people together than with ice cream from Two Roosters? So again, go check them out online, tworoosters.com. You might be spending some time in your house lounging around. May I suggest the sweatpants from Homefield Apparel, homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code OG24. You're going to rot on your couch all week next week during your Christmas break. What better way to rot on that couch than in fleece-lined, comfortable sweatpants from Homefield? Throw a hoodie on top of that, Joe.
Not a bad idea.
Meanwhile, we got our friends over at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. You can check them out online at bugsbite.com. I know you're not thinking about mosquitoes right now, but look, it's December. January turns into February. Next thing you know, it's spring. The bugs are out. You want to make sure that your patio is set up straight. So head over to bugsbite.com. In the meantime, you can take care of the inside of your house with Pest Authority. You can bundle and save at bugsbite.com. Speaking of save money on gas. Download the app from our friends at Breeze Through. Check out more at breezethrough.com. You're getting on the road, pick up snacks, supplies, and of course, gas at our Breeze Through locations. And if you're going to be doing some tailgating during the holiday break with the Canes in town and whatnot, cheap parking at the Breeze Through, Joe.
28th. Yep. Head on over. $20. Can't beat it.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, you get clean with Enobana.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, voice of the Carolina Hurricanes, he is Mike Maniscalco. Mike, what up, man?
If you would have had me on the podcast about a week ago, that would really have brought back some radio PTSD memories for me.
Dude, I texted this to you. I haven't mentioned this yet on the podcast, but you want to talk about some old radio scars. You know, we got the OG sports phone, and JoJo in Chapel Hill had discovered the OG sports phone. Some of you have no idea who I'm talking about, but the old heads know who I am talking about.
Can I do a sidebar? Is there just a modicum of comfort in knowing that is still out there on the wall for us?
Yes. It is comforting that no matter where we've gone and we're kind of out of the normal consciousness, that you still seek our opinions and you want to find us. And JoJo I'm not shitting you. He left because the Google Voice only leaves you 3 minutes of time to leave a voicemail on the sports phone. That
Seems
dude
normal.
Seems normal. No, not for JoJo.
No,
He has left 9 minutes worth of voicemails this morning alone, now that he's discovered. But Joe discovered something for me for Christmas. I thought you would appreciate this. Of all people, being the voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. This is an amazing shirt. This is my Christmas gift. It is a shirt that says, all I need today is a little bit of Carolina Hurricanes and a whole lot of Jesus.
No.
And I feel like this is a great transition. You'll appreciate the radio transition. That Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes have looked at the goalie position and said, Jesus, take the wheel. Let's just see where this bad boy goes. We'll get a guy out of hockey for 3 years. Tokarski steps up big on Sunday against the Blue Jackets. Kochetkov comes in last night. Shut out for the Coochie man. Jesus, take the wheel. Let's see where this goalie thing goes, Mike.
Well, to be fair to Dustin Tokarski, just out of the NHL for that time. But at the start of the year, he was basically on the couch, waiting to get a call at 35 years old. But I think what I am looking at it with the Canes goaltender position, and yeah, it's something where how many times have I come on and I've told you and I'll continue to say the Canes are not going to be measured by what they do in games 1 through 82. It's what they're going to do in the postseason, and that you got to have goaltending if you're going to win in the playoffs. So the thing that I'm looking at right now is Pyotr Kochetkov, given this ability to take the job and run with it and show that you can be the number one goaltender that people think you can be, that the potential is there for him. So I thought that was in a really good way, a huge step last night against an Islanders team that is bereft of really any kind of threatening offense, but they have some good players and they had some really good opportunities and they put 32 shots on Pyotr Kochetkov. But for me, the fact that they went to Dustin Tokarski against the Columbus Blue Jackets on this homestand and the way that the spacing between the games was laid out, and you get that performance out of Tokarski, and you gave Kochetkov, where maybe are we seeing a sagging play? What's going on here? You give him a chance to watch the game and not be injured and watch the game, but just watch the game from the bench and then get back in there and claim the crease the way that he did. That was the best I've seen Pyotr Kochetkov in all of it the other night. And the reason why I say that is he comes out and plays the puck like a wild man a little bit, but didn't do it in inopportune times. He's clearly up for the javelin throw. I have no idea what that was the other night, but I loved it.
Mike, real quick on
he's
that.
doing good things.
Look, I don't know if Giglio had this for James and Jackson. I want to say Jacob had it, but when they're toddlers and they've got the pacifier, sometimes they fall out, right? And there's like a little clip that you can put on their onesie or their little like overalls or cute little overalls from Oshkosh Bagosh, right? Put the little clip on so that when the pacifier falls out, it doesn't fall onto the floor. Right? Is there a way we could do that with Kochetkov and the stick?
No.
Or is it like a leash thing? You know, you go to like Disney and there's a kid on a leash. Like
the backpack that's like a monkey or like a dinosaur?
Right.
Yeah, no.
Can we come up with that?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, you'd have to appeal to the NHL for a new piece of equipment. To me, there are times where a goalie dropping the stick, and the first guy I ever saw doing it, and I don't want to give back in the day hockey lessons.
Yes.
You can email me at, but
Mike,
what I'm
letter M.
No, that segment was one of my favorites. So no point am I taking a shot at the legendary, the Hall of Famer Chuck Kate, because
Thank you very much.
I loved Caton's corner.
Yes.
But no, for me, Dominic Hasek was the first guy I would see doing it, but he would drop it. He wouldn't throw it. He would drop it, and then he would use the block. And you guys, have kids who played, and as we know, Joe is going to, in 15 years, going to be one of the coaches for the Carolina Hurricanes. That's the progression, junior Canes to NHL head coach.
Yeah.
But he would use the blocker to reach and stop, grab the puck and get a whistle. Coach Chekhov gave a great answer last night, saying, I don't think I'm doing it as much as I used to, but it is still something that you notice. And we'll see. And look, I think it's part of his game too. Mm-hmm. At times, it's part of his game to let go of the stick.
I'm just sitting here. I'm still trying to get over the GE.
The off air. The Canes to me right now. If they were a stock, I think they're Lenovo. I'd buy them, but the brand before them. We all trust IBM, right? That's why we trust the Rangers. The Rangers are actually beneath the Canes in the standings.
Yes.
But I love
that radio host who I just did. I didn't say that. Yeah, you did. You said it on Monday. Well, I can change on Thursday. I meant it's Maserati.
I got new information. That's what he likes to say. Joe always loves it when we slip into our cow herds. Now, here's another novel concept about the Canes, Mike. And sometimes I think that the goalie situation is the goalie situation. And there's a new Rod Brind'Amour game that dropped that Giglio picked up on. For those who are unfamiliar, for most of Brind'Amour's tenure, we have played the game. Can you tell if the Canes won or lost based on Rod's demeanor after a game? Right?
Yeah.
The new game seems to be he really loves pointing out top draft picks producing at top draft pick levels. This happened last week, right, Joe?
Celebrini, the San Jose game.
Yeah. And it's almost like who's he talking about?
Who's he subtweeting in real time, Mike?
No. Because you guys know.
Which one? Now, and this leads me to, your best players have to be your best players, and Svechnikov has kind of seen some gains there. People wanting to see that out of Svechnikov.
Yeah. Look, the one thing about Rod Brind'Amour, and you guys know it because you get to talk to him a bunch, and I've been around him, and Joe, Ovies and I have been around him for, from his playing career. Ovies a little bit before me. I've been here going on 18 years, is he doesn't, sometimes you can say he doesn't come out and say it, but he doesn't mince words. Like when he comes out and says our top players need to be our top players, there's a little bit of, I don't want to go coach speak, but, some coaches protect players, like, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to do this. They're going to drop hints or whatever. We all know who Rod Brind'Amour is talking about when he says these guys have to be more productive. But when he drops a compliment for somebody, that is not like code or shade. He's literally talking about how good Macklin Celebrini is for the San Jose Sharks at 18 years old. And it's not that's not, I'm going to compliment this guy to try to light a fire under one of my guys. He'll just come right out and say it. which he generally does. I get where it comes from. My thing is, if you play that game, if you watch, and the weirdest thing about hockey is, generally sports are, if you're the better team, you win the game. If you play better, you win the game. Like 99% of sports works that way. Hockey, it doesn't always work that way. You can be the better team. You can control the game, but you can either run into a hot goalie, your power play can stink, the other team's power play gets hot, and you could be the better team for 45 minutes, but you lose the game, which is the weirdest thing about hockey. And I go back to the Ottawa game. The Canes were actually pretty good. Actually, they were very good in every aspect except results, right? They didn't score a goal. So it's hard for me to sit here and be, guys, they were really good against Ottawa and try to sell you on that. But it's the process of how you play the game. Just like if you're Patrick Waugh the other night, first period, you couldn't ask the Islanders to be better than what they were. But they're down 2-0 because the Canes get a power play goal. They take advantage of a lapse in defense by the Isles. So hockey is a weird sport, guys. And you get a bounce here and there, and you got to make the most of it. But the Canes right now, they kind of, I think they've weathered their where are we, or is there going to be a slide? I'm not saying that they're not going to have another losing streak later on this year. They will. Sure. That's the way the sport is. But they're a pretty resilient group. And the thing that I like the most is you plug in a Dustin Tokarski and you get a win out of him. You bring in Tyson Jost. And the organization has never been this deep when you've had to dip down and call up forwards or defensemen. But you bring up the Tyson Jost, and you don't lose anything with how you want to play the game. Or you don't have to bury him and have a guy like that play 4 or 5 minutes like you used to with guys who get called up. So, it's where we're at right now. But again, this is going to be an interesting stretch with the Caps and the Rangers in Nashville before the holiday break, before the Christmas break, for Carolina to really put themselves in a good position for the second half of the season.
Have you forgotten how to travel and how to pack, or you're ready for this 6 and 7 on the road?
I'm ready because the travel schedule, like this has been Shangri-La, being home this long, getting stuff done. My wife and I bought a new house, so I've been able to get things done in the new house. I should have turned on the tree, guys. I apologize for that. I tried to make it festive. But at the same time, the way that we've traveled, I just keep a bag permanently packed, and I'm just ready to go.
Mike Maniscalco, Canes play-by-play. We appreciate the check-in. We will talk. We'll do some more Cowherd impersonations later.
Traveling is a lot like riding a bike.
Yeah, traveling is a lot like Entenmann's cakes. No, it's not. An Entenmann cake is a fine thing to consume for breakfast.
You don't stick it out, but it gives you great comfort.
I have no. Well, no. Sometimes you get something great, and then sometimes you're stuck eating a piece for 45 minutes in the airport in Philly.
Look, all I'm saying is that Cowherd needs to evolve his game. The real game now is you got to catch up with guys like Pat McAfee. You need a guy with a mullet and a weird tie-dye print shirt with wolves on it to be asking Bill Belichick questions. That's what you need in life right now.
It's the holidays. Can I have an airing of grievances?
Yes, of course.
I don't have a festive
pro. Geez.
Yes.
But here's the one thing that I have with our old profession, Joe Ovies.
Yes.
Joe, and I love that it makes Giglio laugh. I really do.
It would be the equivalent of you and me sitting around like him, Luke DeCock, and other old newspaper people, and all the complaining that they would do. So,
what we have to do if we're going to do that, we've got to get somebody to volunteer some really good beverage, like a Pappy 20 or something like that. Yeah. And we can, because we're now getting old, where we can do back in our day.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue, I had Cowherd on once, and he came out and said that Tyler Hansbrough would never score 20 points in an NBA game. And he had some ridiculous line like, I never watched him at UNC, but he's never whatever it is. And it took Hansbrough, I think, 18 or 19 games to score 20 points. But Cowherd said if Hansbrough scored 20 points in a game, he would do his show in his underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Guys, this funny bit. And if he did it especially in the day and age, and it was still early, how viral it would have gone. It would, live there forever. And look, you're the hero. You made a statement, you backed it up, and you moved on. So we tried to get him on with the, hey man, it's been like a month and a half. You're gonna do this. And we got him, and he had this line, and it was just like the contempt was just palpable for talking to the local radio affiliates,
which he used to call meatball radio host.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So I'm waiting, and I get my chance. I'm like, so here's the stat line from, and I read it off. And I go, and I'm pretty sure because we have it. You said that if Tyler Hansbrough scored 20 in a game, you'd do your show in your underwear. I go, so when the people in North Carolina are waiting for the payoff of the bet here, and he goes, do you guys have an Old Navy down there? And I went, yeah, we have quite a few of them. And he goes, my underwear looks an awful lot like their white button-down shirts and jeans from Old Navy.
Oh,
and my exact line was, okay. And I had nothing else to say to the man. So I was done. So my thing is, say the outlandish bullcrap. I don't care. I mean, that's part of the job. That's part of the gig. Like, I gave opinions that people are like, are you for real? I'm like, yeah. But if I was wrong, I wouldn't come back 4 days later after saying it on Monday and say, I didn't say that, or you didn't take it the right way. I would just say, no, I'm wrong. We'll move on. It was rare when I was wrong because I'm very good at what I do.
Great. Great moments in OG history. You need to get them the never nudes.
That's right. Right. I'll get him a pajamagram.
Why does the surface of Mars look so familiar?
I'll get him in the one with the secret flap. Mike Maniscalco.
Thank you. This was very therapeutic for me. I appreciate it.
I feel like these are actually turning into, let's talk about the cans for a little bit. and then we get into a little like, hey, Mike, let's sit on the couch and let's work through some.
And look, don't get me wrong. The guy is a multi-millionaire and has national following. He's good at his job. It's just those things that would always bother me.
No, I'm with you on that. Mike Maniscalco, K's play-by-play man. All right, man. Have a good Christmas. We'll talk to you later.
Same to you guys. Thank you.
We just took a therapy break and a hockey break with our friend Mike Maniscalco from the Carolina Hurricanes. Head on over to Happy and Hale.
Take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
Drop by any of their locations. Better yet, download the app to make it super convenient for you to pick up and go. Very, very busy time of the year. You're trying to rush and get gifts. Don't forget on eating. Kind of clutch. So download the app and get your Happy and Hale today. Think of it as pregame for all the holiday eating you'll be doing.
I was going to say the smoothies can set you right too.
Yes. And speaking of pre-gaming, maybe you want to get that pre-sweat in. Calorie canceling out. Go to O2 Fitness. It's all math. Make the math this holiday season. You're going to eat all that 2 roosters. You're going to eat all those cookies. You need to sweat it all out.
O2 Fitness, so much more than a gym.
Also, get on top of it right now because once the new year hits, everybody's going to be going back to the gym. So you want somebody with a friendly staff, great equipment, and of course, location, Joe.
Locations, convenience. O2 Fitness has it all.
Also, you're in sleepy mode, so I'm hoping that you are going to be zonked on the couch throughout most of the holiday break. Don't do anything to your neck. Don't take back the gains you've made with Renew Physiotherapy.
No, not a good idea.
Speaking of working out, our friends at Rhoback go beyond just the polos. You need some performance shirts. You want some shorts that are incredibly comfortable while you work out at the gym. Rhoback's got it. Get that January starter kit for your new workout goals at Rhoback.
Tying it all together here with a health lean. I like
absolutely. This. Go to Rhoback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. We've been getting a lot of questions about Rhoback and the show specific Rhoback that's been making the rounds. Obviously, we've got one right here. This wonderful hoodie that's going to one of our listeners. A lot of people missed that drop. Will there be another drop, Joe?
I want to do something with the owl.
Okay.
Yeah. They also have something with an AV cart that's coming out in March where we could potentially put our logo on their AV cart design.
I'd like to see that.
Prefab design. So we're in the works.
I'd like to see that.
We'll get something else done in 2025.
I'd like to see that. Big thanks to our friend Matt Davis at State Farm, InsureGarner.com, VOGinsurance.com, or call him directly at 919-779-8277. Holidays are a strain on the budget. We get that. You're probably looking for ways to save money. The easiest way to save money is on your home and auto. So contact Matt Davis. He can save you money like he's done for a lot of OG listeners in 2024.
Yeah, you just have to call 919-779-8277. have a conversation and figure out ways you could save on all of your insurance needs.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, former chancellor at the University of North Carolina, now the editor-in-chief of the Science family of journals. He is Holden Thorp. Holden, what's going on, man?
Hey, great to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
I would love to talk to you about all the changes in Orlando. Epic Universe is on the way. I am hype about Super Mario Land. Are you?
We are more of a Disney family, but whenever Universal does something new, we ride over there and see what's up. Yeah,
Right. You got to check it out. You got to check it out.
Yeah.
And go, hey, Disney, come on, let's catch up. Let's get on this villains thing.
Yeah.
Shall we? Let's make this thing happen. Right. I could not help but think about you while North Carolina was going through this circus of a coaching search, the will he, won't he, with Bill Belichick. And I kept getting back to, man, imagine how life would have been different for Holden Thorp and Butch Davis if all this stuff was quote unquote legal now, as opposed to where it was back in 2009, 2010, 2011 with all the scandal that had happened. As you're watching this unfold at your old school, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that so much. I mean, I do think you're correct that if we had the same rules we had now, Marvin Austin's tweet wouldn't have mattered. The NCAA never would have shown up. And for all we know, the problems in AFAM might not have been discovered or would have been discovered in a different way. Who knows? So, yeah, that does cross my mind from time to time. But I think on this thing, the thing that I've been going through is, I picked Bubba out of a pool of outstanding people who all became ADs at other big Power 5 schools. I think he's done the best of the group, so I'm proud that I selected him. And there's a whole lot of drama behind this thing, but if ultimately what he said at the press conference was sincere and he's excited about this and this was his choice, then I'm for it all the way. I'm Team Bubba.
We're all Team Bubba on this program, but I think you understand how the sausage is made, and it's not that simple. What you get at the press conference is not exactly how everything was going on behind the scenes. By the time you get to the press conference, everybody has to be on the same page. For those who are unfamiliar, and I don't know, maybe it's changed immensely since you were there over 10 years ago versus where we are today, but the North Carolina Board of Trustees and the North Carolina Board of Governors can be a pretty highly political organization that is we've gotten to a situation where some good people have left the university because of all the things that play out behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's always been complicated. And if you were going to design a system and you looked around the country, you would conclude that North Carolina came up with the most complicated system you could have. And that is that one part of the system is similar to what you have at a lot of universities, where the chancellor who runs the campus reports to the president who runs the system, who reports to a board of politically appointed people. That's the Board of Governors. But in North Carolina, you have this additional complication where there's a board of trustees that usually thinks that the chancellor works for them, but actually on paper, and if you look at the statutes, they have very little operational authority over the university, almost none. The reason that they're there is historically, when the system was created, the Board of Governors was much bigger. And when they shrunk it, they didn't want to tell all the people who got kicked off that they had nothing to do. So they put them on these boards of trustees associated with the different campuses. And so there's always competition between the trustees and the Board of Governors. In my case, the Board of Trustees was very much on my side, and I had much more trouble with the Board of Governors because there's another weird thing about the way this works, and that is on the Board of Governors, you have some UNC Chapel Hill advocates and you have some NC State advocates. And when you have an athletic scandal like I did, the NC State advocates who have been punished by the UNC Chapel Hill advocates in the past Now we're going way back to Valvano, but they're out for revenge, and so that's very complicated. Now, what you have now is the opposite, and this has been true for Kevin's time and to some extent now for Lee Roberts, where the Board of Governors is very cohesive. And I give Peter Hans a lot of credit for getting them on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And the Board of Trustees has been at odds with the Chapel Hill administration for the last 6 or 7 years. And that's very unfortunate, and it creates a lot of noise.
What if I tried to tell you back during the great uncleanliness, the messiness of your tenure, that you know what Carolina's going to do? We're going to put $40 million into the football program. We're going to shuttle basketball to the side, and we're going to hire Bill Belichick. What do you think your reaction 15 years ago to that would be?
It would depend on when you ask me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So before I fired Butch, and before when everything first started, I believed what anyone else in the United States who isn't a Carolina person, and what any management consultant would tell you, which is that North Carolina is a basketball school. And if you were applying normal principles of business strategy, you would double down on basketball because that's your strength.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you try to compete with somebody in something that's so difficult to compete with? That's straight out of like a Mike Porter business school strategy lecture. And that seems so obvious to me. But of course, after I fired Butch and all hell broke loose, then I started realizing that you don't get to do that. And you don't get to do that for a variety of reasons. One is that there are a lot of fans who don't think rationally about their school and think that they can be good at football and basketball. It's very hard to do. There are a few places that have done it for a short period of time. And of course, economically, men's basketball was then, and has even more so, lost a lot of the power that it had, and football has gained power. So after I fired Butch and all hell broke loose, I went out and hired an AD who was known for building football, because I realized no matter how rational it is, you don't get to tell your school they're a basketball school. Yeah. Even in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, even at Duke, they've done a great job with football. So when, by the time I was hiring Bubba, and we went and hired Fedora, who we thought was the best mid-major guy, and everybody forgets, but the best season Carolina's had in football since a long time was when Larry Fedora was the coach. By that point, I realized that you have to build football whether it's rational or not. So if you'd asked me after that, I probably would have said, sure, why not? I mean, you got to try to do whatever you can do in football. And if you get a chance to hire Bill Belichick and make a big splash, then that's a rabbit worth running.
You've felt the weight of the political largesse of UNC and all of its systems and all of its different layers. What advice do you have for Bubba for navigating the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, in terms of onboarding Bill Belichick, he knows more about how to do that. So I don't have advice for him about that.
Well, I think it comes down to
there's a subtext here.
Yeah,
Holden.
clearly there was what Bubba thought he was going to do when they moved on from Mac Brown versus where we ended up. Like I said, we can separate the press conference where everybody's on the same page, and we do the typical college football hiring language about, well, he was the only person we offered the job to. Perfect fit, all these things, right?
Right.
And the gimmicks. But we know there's a lead up to this, and it is curious where this is now. Again, this is what I'm curious about when a chancellor or president steps in. there's what the AD wants to do, and then there's what the money wants to do. And if they're not aligned, the money's always going to win. When you moved on from Larry Fedora, well, the money won with Mac Brown. And it seems like the money's winning here again, much like the family ties won with basketball with Hubert Davis, and be really curious to see how that plays out. So from your perspective, from Bubba's perspective and how this all works, money does really rule all this stuff, right?
Yeah. So when the only time I ever did this was extremely orderly.
Mm-hmm.
I worked extremely hard to make sure that I had the AD on board before the end of the season so that he could go to New York to the thing that they all go to where all the interviews are done during the championship weekend and interview who he wanted and come home and make a recommendation to me as to who the coach would be. And he got a sitting coach who, from my perspective, I mean, Larry Fedora was outstanding. The first time I went on a team trip with him, we were getting on the plane, and when I used to fly with Butch Davis's team, I always sat up front. All the coaches sat up front in the big seats. When we got on the plane with Larry, we did something much more rational, which is the small people all sat in the back, and the offensive line sat in the front in the big seats. And that was the day I decided we made the right decision hiring Larry Fedora. If you're a chancellor, that's the kind of thing you care about, right? So that was extremely orderly. There were some trustees who were involved in the interviews, but they were people I knew and trusted, and it was a unanimous recommendation, and it all worked out. It was super smooth. This obviously was not.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the details. I've communicated with Lee and Bubba, both of whom have my steadfast support, and told them, if you guys are for this, I'm for it. I can believe that it wasn't where they started. And it's been reported in enough different outlets, and it's certainly consistent with other things that the trustees have done, that they were muddying the waters in the search and maybe even talking to candidates and agents outside the process. That is amateur governance in every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys have shown, and what's funny about this is a lot of them are business people, and they do things in these roles that they would never do in their own businesses with their own money, right? So simply trashing an executive who works for the CEO, who works for somebody else, it's not even them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is absolutely unconscionable behavior. I'm on the board.
Though. That's what sports does.
I know.
Holden. It makes people irrational.
It does. I'm on the PBS board, and I'm on the board at St. Louis University. And if anybody did anything like that on our board, they'd just be told, "Thanks for your service. We really appreciate all you've done for us." But these guys, they did lots of things that weren't related to athletics in the same way with Kevin, to try to make him miserable enough so that he would leave. And since Lee has come, they've been ugly about Bubba multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And they would never, they would all believe that in a business, like, if the board of the Walt Disney Company was publicly trashing the guy who runs Epcot, who reports to the head of the parks, who reports to the CEO, that just wouldn't be tolerated. So they're doing that. It's unacceptable. But unfortunately, even Peter Hans and the Board of Governors don't have that much latitude to try to stop them. And I admire the way Lee and Bubba have been handling it, and especially the way Lee has handled it. He has said repeatedly in his interviews, "My boss is Peter Hans, the president of the system," which is a way of trolling the board of trustees to remind them that they're not his boss. And at the press conference, he said Bubba Cunningham is the best AD in the country, or something like that. And that's a good way of him reminding people that he and he alone will decide who the athletic director at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is. So yeah, it was messy. I don't know. I don't have any inside scoop for you as to whether they went to a mid-major college coach and were trying to hire them, and then the board went to Bill Belichick or went to the college coach they were trying to hire and scared them off.
Yeah.
All these things are possible. It wouldn't be inconsistent with the way they've done things. It was kumbaya at the press conference, and if that brings them together at all, then that's a good thing. I hope, it's my firm hope that the trustees and the administration would get on the same page. I went to Lee's installation and I talked to a couple of them. Some of them didn't want to talk to me, and some of them did, the ones I knew better from before.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure wish everybody could get themselves together and start acting like a real organization.
I only got one more thing, and we appreciate you and making some time to talk about this stuff. I know that you're probably fascinated as to why that era of time, your era of time, is still a point of fascination for everybody. But I do think it comes back down to the what if scenarios, if rules had been different, and how we just kind of washed all that away. We just hand waved all that stuff as the rules have evolved, which now that the rules have evolved and we are here, and you recognized that Carolina's identity had to shift. I guess the question is, and I'm asking Holden Thorp, the Carolina guy, we can all recognize the identity needs to shift. The question is, will it? How long does that take? Momentum is a big thing, and there's a lot of momentum behind basketball. And anytime people thought there was momentum with football, it was quickly dashed. So how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think that a lot of things have changed since then. Remember that as we were talking about with the BOG, there was still a lot of resentment about what went down with Valvano, and a lot about what went down with Jim Oblinger, who was the NC State chancellor, who had to leave over a political matter. And so there was a lot of payback on the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors seems much more cohesive to me now. So I don't think, and Lee Roberts was on the Board of Governors. So one good thing right now is that the BOG seems to be, Peter Hans has them operating in a very professional manner. And I think that's good. And the other thing is that Mr. Friday isn't around anymore to tell everybody how evil athletics are and to dictate editorials to Giglio's old paper about how if the administrators only had the courage to stand up to athletics, then none of these things would be a problem. So that seems to be gone. And I always hope, my fervent hope is that the lesson of everything that I went through is that trying to fight this thing is just not a worthwhile errand. I mean, almost no one has ever fought athletics as a college administrator and won. And I tell all my peeps that are out in the business now, they get an athletics thing, I say, just go along with it. A perfect example is, so remember when the Fab Five at Michigan, where they took the banners down and everything?
Yeah.
And Mary Sue Coleman, who was the president, who's one of my mentors and one of the greatest ever, got up and said, and this was one of the things that drove me at the time. She got up and said, "This is a day of shame for our university," right? Fast forward to last year, Harbaugh is clearly getting a show cause. Clearly, he ended up getting a 4-year show cause, which is one of the biggest I've ever heard of. And his president tries to retain him.
Right.
Okay. Why? He made as gross as it is that he did that. It was the smart thing to do, because he knew Harbaugh was going to go to the pros anyway, because he wasn't going to be able to coach at the University of Michigan. So he makes a big show out of trying to keep him. That makes the money at Michigan happy. And he ends up getting credit or not getting blamed for Harbaugh going.
Yeah.
Right. Which was super smart to do. So, that's the world we're in now. And higher education has got so many challenges that are frankly more important with what gets taught and how it gets paid for and what the federal government's role is going to be. And, they're in for a ride here. We all are. All of us on this side of the business are. And so it's smarter to use athletics to build support. And especially because it's a fool's errand to try to stop any of this stuff. So if the momentum is towards building football, which, in my view, it's been ever since the day I fired Butch Davis. If the momentum is towards building football, then that's probably the smart thing to do. And you got an AD there who was a football guy when he came in. And if they all came together, if they're all at least cosmetically together right now on this, then let's hope it works. It'll be very entertaining to watch. The press conferences, you guys are going to have so much fun at those press conferences. It's going to be pure gold.
I appreciate all the content that they've blessed us with in 2024 between a ACC championship run and Final Four run for NC State to this business with Bill Belichick. It's fantastic. Speaking of content, next time I'm in Orlando, you, me, Toy Story Mania, we'll see who wins after a few rounds.
Oh yeah. You're probably with me. Even my kids can destroy me. It's like that string is hard to pull,
Yeah, man. And with the glasses, you and I both have glasses with 3D things on. Your aim's a little off.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin is more our speed.
Yeah, I'll take. Well, I know the cheats on Buzz Lightyear.
A true Disney pro.
Yes, I live there, man.
Chancellor UNC. We appreciate the time as always. We will talk to you later.
Okay, great talking to you guys.
I feel like it's been a very therapeutic day with Maniscalco and Holden Thorp. Just kind of working through some old things.
We try our best to be there for our people.
Always love catching up with Holden. Always a fascinating conversation. Big thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty. Check them out online at myhtr.com. With Hometown Realty, you can go back to them after this holiday season. You're visiting a friend. You're invited to a party in the neighborhood. You're looking at the inside of this house going, man, this is nice. This new construction's sweet. I need some of this. Who do I call? Hometown Realty, Joe. Incentives. They know them. They can help you out. And when you buy that house, or let's say you sell the house, you can contact our friends at Whitaker and Hamer. Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law locations across North Carolina. They can help your personal matters. They can help your small to medium-sized business needs as well. So contact our friends at Whitaker and Hamer, WH.lawyer. We've been talking about the stresses of the season. Don't stress. Go to Nature's Relief and Vibe. I put the call out for what were your moments of 2024?
Oh, okay.
All right. So as we do our little OG mailbag thing on Monday. And somebody had pointed out, it was in their top 4, but number 3 was the 10 milli for Giglio.
That was a vibe.
It was. So you're looking for better, deeper nights of sleep. You're looking for just something that helps you vibe while you're watching all these bowl games. Nature's Relief Hempstore.com can help you out. And of course, the Butcher's Market. They bring you the OG mailbag and they bring you wonderful prepared meals. May I suggest those ham biscuits that they've got frozen? Take those to a party. Fantastic.
I have never had those.
Oh, the country biscuits?
Yeah.
You just stick them in the oven, dude. Fantastic. Something new.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
Let's get over the hot dogs. I know you got that dog in you.
So you come in and there's like
the
fresh
freezer
stuff here. Then you have the case. And then you're saying if you go to the left where they have prepared stuff, but it's frozen, you bring it home and you zap it. Okay.
Yeah, that's where it's at. So that's what you need to do. So by all means, head on over to the Butcher's Market and make sure that you take advantage of all the things that they have. Not just the butcher's case, not just things like the seasonings and the trouble. They even have prepared meals ready to go. All right, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe. My brother sent this to me from Instagram. He says, please show this to Giglio. Top 7 Italian restaurants in New Jersey. You've got the Olive Garden in Rockaway, the Olive Garden in Paramus. You've got the Olive Garden in East Brunswick, the Olive Garden in Eatonton, Olive Garden in, Manahawkin. That's a real place. Vineland, Cherry Hill. Have you been to any of these Olive Gardens in New Jersey, Joe?
No, I see. Now I don't dislike Olive Garden, but I've never been to an Olive Garden in New Jersey.
I've always wanted to, just for the memes, go to the Olive Garden in Times Square.
Is there one?
There was. I don't know if it still exists. I know the Sbarro was there for a long time.
The authentic Italian slice.
Well, look, have I told you the story that my dad, we go to New York, there's all these things that are there, and he goes into Howard Johnson on Times Square because he needed his fried clam strips.
Oh,
because who doesn't want fresh, locally sourced fried clam strips at a Howard Johnson in Times freaking Square, man?
you got me.
Yeah. My dad loved the clam strips. Absolutely loved them. Anyway, let's go to some of the sports phone things we got here. This is from a 336 number. Hey, Joe's, can't wait to read Bubba's book about all the egomaniacs and political games involved in this UNC shit show. The only way this ends is with Bubba resigning and John Pryor and his buddies putting Mac as the AD. No doubt Mac has been involved in the background trying to sabotage Bubba the true Carolina way. I don't know if Bubba's involved now. Mac was clearly not happy with the spending with football. That's been abundantly clear. It's been said enough times. I think people recognize that, right?
Yeah.
But now I think Mac's probably just like, man, that's y'all's problem now. I told you yesterday, he's probably seething at Bill Belichick talking about bringing guys back to Carolina as though that's not his freaking steez. And Bill's trying to steal his steez. Come on now. Come on. Bubba, I told you. Anyway, I would be curious to get like the truth serum out of Bubba Cunningham for this whole entire cycle. And who knows? Maybe we'll get it. Maybe we don't. Maybe he disappears like Herb Sendek when it's all said and done. From a 252, how is Tom Coughlin's phone not ringing off the hook in the ACC?
Has to be.
You'd think, right?
The only coach to get over on the Pats, the War Machine, twice.
From a 704 number, wow, what a sad dick measuring contest UNC just let play out on the national stage the last 2 weeks. So many more micro penises at UNC's highest levels than you would think. I want to say that came from the NC State moderator. Just a hunch. A micro penis reference? I think I know where that came from. From a 260 number, just a thought. So if Bubba's the ninja AD, which is something that I referenced 2 weeks ago, does he hire Belichick? And when he fails, which has a Tar Heel myself, I'm pretty sure he will Bubba pin this on John Pryor and the cronies on the BOT, and Bubba gets to hire the guy he really wants, 2 problems solved?
And now that would be the long game.
That does sound like the long game. That is not something I think is actually going to happen. Just a hunch. I don't think it's that's almost getting into way too deep a conspiracy for even me to entertain. Speaking of which, shout out to Aaron Rodgers, who really is leading into the conspiracy theory vote this week.
I saw ESPN promoting a documentary about Aaron Rodgers. I was like,
it's a Netflix doc. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sure Joe Ovies is all over this.
No. From Doug, what Giglio is talking about with college football teams traditionally having different styles is, I think, one reason the NBA is not as appealing. Everyone plays the exact same style. Have you seen that graphic making the rounds of where basketball was in the early 2000s versus where it is today? The heat chart where the shots were coming from?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Where it is today versus where it was 20 years ago. And yeah, that sameness is something that people have argued is not a good way to watch basketball. From Timmy Ann, I'll say it for Mac. F you, Bill. Hate seeing him in that Carolina sweatshirt. And what else we got here? I think that was it. We got some Carolina fans in here that are happy. Got some blind lemon jello. Got people boosting the show, which I appreciate. PD Pate, really happy with the Sidney Lowe bit that never gets old. Your best players have to be your best players.
Well, your best players have to be your best players. And then they have to make shots. It's the only way you can win.
Absolutely.
I mean, Carolina, listen to Sidney Lowe.
Gotta make shots.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. Enjoying OG and Friends. Like always, we will see you tomorrow for an OG Live brought to you by the Butcher's Market. Go check them out. And of course, go check out our friends at Longleaf Swine. Longleafswine.com. Today is the last day that you can put your order in for the holiday package. Today is it. So if you're listening on Wednesday, December 18th, this is it. Go get that today if you want to take advantage of that. If not, no big deal. Just drop on by their location in downtown Raleigh. We're having those wild North Carolina weather days where it's like 70 degrees today.
Right. Today's the last day, right?
I think it is. Tonight would be a perfect night to go hang out on the patio and enjoy a smash burger and some bourbon. I mean, a perfect night for it. But obviously they have things covered as well. So big thanks to our friends at Longleaf Swine. My guess is you'll see me during the holiday break hanging out at Longleaf. We will see you Thursday.